Hello, useless eaters. As your unqualified, non-elected global human health overlord, I'd like to take this opportunity to flaunt my position of power and influence over society and share some of my plans for you and your future. When I amassed my fortune in computer software, I demonstrated that I was willing to lie, steal code, cheat my partners, and exercise monopolistic control to destroy my competitors. Now that I've retired, I can rebrand myself as a humanitarian. With my for-profit foundation masquerading as a charity, I can advocate for population reduction and sponsor mass human experiments with unproven vaccines in vulnerable populations. Like my father, a powerful banker, eugenicist, and Rockefeller crony himself, it's always been my ambition to decide who lives and, more importantly, how many have to die. Whether it's under the guise of climate change or world health, it's really all about controlling and culling the human herd for fun and profit. In November of last year, I hosted Event 201, a war game simulation of a global pandemic. Leaders from private corporations, global banks, governments, and the media got together to strategize ways they could align in lockstep when responding to a worldwide health crisis. Using a coordinated campaign of fear-mongering, intimidation, social shaming, and economic blackmail, we realized that we could get around dangerous philosophies like individual liberty and national sovereignty. With an obedient population, we would be free to implement our own top-down solutions, like forced quarantines, social distancing, contact tracing, and mandatory testing, as a means to seize technocratic control of society. Now imagine my excitement when we had the opportunity to declare our own global pandemic. It was my chance to look like the Nostradamus of public health and to position myself and business partners like Dr. Fauci as the de facto authorities on response and solutions. Through exaggerated doomsday scenarios and computer simulations, our petty control freaks instituted harsh rules and draconian lockdowns. Even after our dire predictions proved false, scared and well-meaning people continued to submit to the arbitrary and foolish demands of their so-called leaders. Having achieved global lockdown and medical martial law, we will continue to hold hostage your ability to congregate, work, travel, or do just about anything until we're prepared to roll out our bigger plan. I'd like to call this Pandemic 1, because believe me, we have others in the works. Our final solution is to have you begging for us to vaccinate, tag, and digitally track each one of you like livestock. Not only will my foundation enjoy legal immunity and trillions in profits, but these mandatory experimental vaccines will move us so much further down the road to absolute centralized global control. If only my good friend Jeffrey Epstein had been here to celebrate with me aboard the Lolita Express. So remember, global citizens, this will end when I say it ends. Could be a year, maybe 2 years, maybe never. I guarantee that if we have our way, it will be at least until you're not able to do anything to stop it. Just surrender your personal freedom and common sense to our fear merchants in government and the media, because none of this works unless you all go along with it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to do some augmented reality spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich. Bye now.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the second day of the Global Vaccine Summit. Last night, we had a great celebration of all the progress we've made in the global effort. We are much closer today to achieving the goal of universal coverage. Today, we'll have experts sitting down and talking about what it takes to solve this problem. You'll hear some very exciting new commitments to this fight. You'll see new partnerships that are working together and solve the very tough problems that we have in the final stages. I think today will go down in the history of global health as a very important day, right up there with the time that UNICEF first committed to universal vaccination, right up there with the original creation of the Global Alliance for Vaccines. We have an incredible set of people here. I challenge all of us to use the time together to share our knowledge and insights, challenge each other's ideas and assumptions, and use our combined understanding and energy to generate the new ideas and partnerships that will achieve our goal. It's within our power to create a better future for children through the power of our collaboration. So let's have the conversation begin. Thank you.
Turning now to our series across the platforms of NBC News focused on a race for a vaccine. So from the very start, Bill Gates has devoted not only his time, but also his money to finding a solution.
That's right. As someone who has been involved in health initiatives around the world for years now, Gates' foundation has now contributed $450 million to the global COVID-19 response.
He famously warned about a global pandemic back in 2015 in a TED Talk. We first sat down back in April when we were just weeks into the pandemic and still figuring it out. Well, now, with at least one vaccine approved in the UK already and hopefully several green lights to come here in the US, we spoke again about where things stand and where they're going. It feels like we're in that dreaded second wave. We're in that dark winter. How are you looking at how we're handling this?
Well, it's a paradoxical situation because things are getting worse right now. And so the next 4 or 5 months actually look pretty grim unless we can really double down on our behavior. But the tools, both treatment tools like antibodies and some of these amazing vaccines will start to roll out. And by the spring, those numbers will be big enough that certainly in the United States, it'll start to change the numbers dramatically. And, we'll be headed back to normal.
It's the classic, it's always darkest before the dawn. But we have it in our power to make it less dark. What would be your message to people?
Well, the most impactful thing is associating with people less, wearing a mask, wherever you might be exposed to someone outside your household. The projections show that we could save, of the several 100,000 lives that are projected to be lost in these months ahead, 50,000 of those would be saved if we had high mask compliance.
The obvious bright spot here is the race for the vaccine. Obviously, Pfizer just had approval in the UK. It's seeming to be on the verge of approval here in the US. Moderna, another vaccine hot on its heels. If someone had told you in a year we would have a vaccine for a virus we didn't even know existed a year ago, what would you have thought?
It's unheard of. And even when we saw the antibody results for these vaccines, we didn't know how effective they would be. It looks like almost all the vaccines are going to succeed. It is great science, great industrial manufacturing, great cooperation, even across countries. So, this is a war where we're all in it together.
When you saw that 90% plus effective rate, did your jaw drop?
No, that was phenomenal. That was absolutely at the high end of expectations. This is a great vaccine. So that's great for COVID and it's great for other vaccines as well.
As exciting and promising as it is, do you have any hesitance or reservations about the way some of this information is rolling out?
Well, we are moving quickly, but the FDA has a very clear review process, and I would say they've avoided being pressured to cut corners on that. Some of the earlier things, where they approved hydroxychloroquine or the way that the plasma stuff went wasn't them at their best. With the vaccine here, they've been super strong.
Do you have faith in our government's ability to immunize Americans on this scale?
Well, it's going to be tricky, and it's kind of weird that the CDC throughout this epidemic hasn't had the visible role that you would have expected. A lot of these things delegated to the states, the execution will not be what it should be. But overall, I do think we'll get it out. It just the federal government has abdicated on many things during this pandemic.
You're not one for politics, but that's a pretty serious indictment. The federal government has abdicated on some of its fundamental responsibilities in a public health crisis.
Yeah, the federal government has way more resources than the states. Punting it to the states means it won't be perfect, but it'll get done.
Would you have expected the U.S. to have done better in a pandemic?
Well, dramatically.
Do you blame the president for that?
I think the administration overall, as we do the postmortem, there'll be a lot of things like confused messaging, lack of leadership that will fall on the executive branch, and we'll hope that the next time we do a lot better.
Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski, who is in charge of some of the distribution, says that by the end of June, 100% of Americans who want a COVID vaccine will have it. Does that timeline seem doable or overly optimistic?
No, I'd say that if we handle the logistics and messaging well, that should be achievable.
Are you worried about widespread skepticism or reluctance to get the vaccine?
Well, if this was like measles and we had to get up to like 95%, I'd be very worried. As it is, we only have to get up to probably 70%
of people inoculated.
Yeah, with the being treated with the vaccine to drop the numbers down dramatically. And so I'm hopeful that even people who are initially reluctant, that we'll get to 70% as people see, they'll have more data that says, hey, look, people are having a good experience and it is helping them not die.
Will you personally get the first vaccine that's offered to you as soon as you can get it?
Yeah, whatever my place in line rightly is, I will immediately step up and take the vaccine.
Do you have a preference? Not that you'll get a choice, but do you have a preference about which vaccine?
I won't be picky individually. They're all good vaccines.
Do you feel hopeful that there's a new administration? Do you feel like you'll have a better partner there to work with in terms of the immunization and the efforts that are needed going forward?
Yeah, I think there'll be less denial. I think we'll have a more consistent message that, hey, we're here to, even if the news is bad, we're going to be frank with you about what's going on.
This fall, you lost your father, who was very, very special to you. To lose him at this time when the country is feeling such loss, how are you reflecting on that, and how have you been dealing with that?
Yeah, my dad was very special, a role model that I'll never match. He got the foundation started when I was still full-time at Microsoft. So when I moved over in 2008, it's already going very well based on his work. His approach of jumping in, thinking broadly, it inspired us. And, I'm sure he would have loved to see this ability of that team to pitch in and help with this pandemic.
Yeah, his father was very instrumental in the Gates Foundation, which has been working on infectious disease all this time. Now we all have had an education in it, but they've been doing this work a long time. But on masks, he said something really interesting. He said, if we thought of them as if the masks are the miracle intervention. In terms of their effectiveness, in terms of bringing down the infectiousness and the transmission and the numbers, the miracle is here. It's a mask, which is an interesting way to think about it.
Well, to hear him say that 50,000 lives could be saved by just that. Doing that.
Yeah, a lot of researchers say that, at least 50,000 lives. He also said that this work that's been done on the vaccine, which is incredible by all accounts, I mean, we've never had a vaccine come anywhere close to this fast, that it has relevance to other vaccines and other treatments. So what we're learning now, that's the silver lining. The silver lining is what we're learning now has great relevance and great impact in the future for other public health crises.
Yeah, I like how he thought by June, everyone who wants a vaccine could have a vaccine.
If we do it right.
If we do it right.
If we do it right.
That was a fascinating conversation.
Really great.
Fascinating conversation. We should also mention, by the way, there's more of our network-wide series on the race for a vaccine on a special hour-long edition of Dateline tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, including Lester Holt's exclusive conversations with top executives at Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson.
I believe that art of the future is art without objects. This is just pure transmission of energy between the viewer and artist. To me, mixed reality is this answer.
This was a unique opportunity to take the most legendary artists working now and capture them in such a way that they are translatable forever.
If you're a collector, you're trying to find works that break new ground. We here at Christie's believe that this is that. And it will be the first time that a mixed reality artwork is sold at auction.
There was always a question what you buy when you buy performance. You buy the video or you buy the additional photographs. Here, you actually can have the artist's presence in your collection.
The first thing that we had to figure out was you had to feel that you were in the room with Marina, not a document of Marina. So HoloLens 2 was created by people who quite clearly have an interest in the audience forgetting that they are using technology. So the purest expression of artistic intent can happen.
I really want viewer to be with me in the space, in here and now. The life is dealing with what is going to stay after I'm not there anymore. And I can face myself. And that's a frightening experience. Really like you're facing your own ghost. There is always this great idea of immortality. Once you die, the work will never die because the work of art can continue. In performance, the piece is only in the memory of the audience and nowhere else. Here, I am kept forever.